I'm John Zerzan, age 81, Eugene, Oregon. I was born in Salem, Oregon, in a small town uh, Catholic family. Uh, Went to Stanford in the 60s, and I was in the San Francisco Bay Area in the 60s. I went from Stanford to Haight-Ashbury. And I'm basically an independent writer, and I've been involved in, I came of age in the 60s, and so I've been, uh, yeah, ever since I've been involved in anti-authoritarian angles and have 6 or 8 books, and yeah, here we are. Well, when things kind of broke loose in the mid 1960s, late 1960s, actually, I was going to go back to uh, academia. I was going to start in graduate studies, but that became less important. Well, I dumped that. I was at UC Davis, trying to or thinking of beginning a PhD program there, and I saw a photo of a friend of mine. Headshot guy was just really beat up. His face was a mess, and the cops had raided this party and pulled him out and gave him a big beating because he was a radical. And I said to my friends, the hell with grad school. Let's go back to San Francisco and join the fight. And that's what happened. And then when it ended, when the 60s movement stopped, we had all these questions. Why did it end? What it was all about? Excuse me, what was it all about? What were we missing? What just all these questions. Even the whole idea of revolution, for example, came under question. What does that even mean? So fairly soon, uh, as a writer, I was history stuff. The beginning of the Industrial Revolution in England, the first unions, the first factories, all that kind of stuff, began to notice the whole question of technology that became real paramount to me, that the idea that technology isn't neutral, it's never neutral. It really displays the deepest values and choices of the dominant society. So that was a brand new idea to me. And if you keep going on that level in that area, you might come, or I did anyway, to the question of civilization. Maybe that's questionable, especially now when it's failing. As one global totality, it's really showing that it hasn't worked out too well. All the civilizations have failed before, and now really there's only one. There's different cultures, but there's only one big old civilization, and it's coming apart at the seams on every level. It's a mess. It just so anyway, that's kind of where I've gotten to over the years, kind of slowly but surely. Well, a very significant one was the Green Anarchy magazine project from 2000 to 2008. And I think in a lot of ways that put the question of civilization on the map. It was amazingly successful. I think we did 25 issues over that span of time. And I remember it cost $3,000 per issue to print and about 3,000 in postage to mail it out. It was free to prisoners, for example. Anyway, we didn't have any money. I mean, where is the money going to come from to do that kind of ambitious? Well, it did. It came in from all over the place, all over the world, really. So we began to see there's a resonance. People are noticing what classical anarchism didn't notice. In other words, the classical red anarchism, capital in the state, those are the two enemies. It's still being repeated in some places, capital in the state. well, what about civilization? What about technology? This is a hugely technological society, as the Unabomber pointed out. And I think that's his analysis really holds up pretty darn well, by the way. So anyway, there's been a big shift from red anarchism to green anarchy. Very big difference. Very big difference. We have really nothing in common, for example, with Noam Chomsky, who hates us, the anarcho-primitivist or green anarchy point of view or civilization critique or whatever name you want to put on it. He deems that genocidist, not only genocidal in its outcome, its hoped for outcome, but in its intent, which is really kind of hysterical. I mean, if you talk about the failure of civilization, its suicidal course, well, that's where he's at, not where we're at. We don't want to go down with the ship as civilization starts to fail. It's totally visibly failing. I mean, I don't know if you can find anyone who denies that. So two different routes altogether, just very different points of view. Well, Bookchin ended up really freaking out, kind of like Chomsky, for that matter, uh, as against what we represent. I mean, this book, what was it called? Something about a clash. Darn, this is a book from the 90s that he put out. Maybe you can recall the name of it. Damn, it escapes me. But it's this choice, as he laid out, between anarchism and this crazy green anarchy stuff. He was just really up in arms, to put it mildly. And he pointed me out as the worst of the worst in terms of this craziness. Said we're degenerate and not serious, not disciplined, just very, very authoritarian point of view. I mean, he revealed it toward the end. It's very sad. I mean, to come to such a shrill, out of the point of view. I mean, just desperate to cling on. And he showed himself really to never have been an anarchist, if you ask me. He never really was. He was a leftist with the authoritarian tendencies were always there, and they really came out toward the end of his life. So yeah, two different paths. I mean, he showed where he was at, and the nonsense about, well, technology might be fine. Of course, we have to preserve technology. Well, that's just ridiculous in my view. First of all, where does it come from? What does it rely upon? It relies on the wage slavery of millions of people. And, that's the question. Would you like to be down in the mines, on the assembly line, working in the warehouse? You're going to have all of that to have the technology, the nice, shiny technology like what we're using right now. Yeah, what does it depend upon? So your ideas of freedom, revolution, or what have you, kind of go out the window once you realize the basis of it. It doesn't come down from heaven, somehow automatically. But these people on the left, they ignore that. They're still ignoring that, as painfully obvious as it is. For starters, I mean, it's just part of it. The slavery of people in the tech thing is really, how is it different from the factory operatives in the 19th century? It's same old wage slavery, and there's no freedom there. And the problem is, anarchism never opposed that. They had no beef at all with industrialization, with the factory system, with people being herded into the factories. The only exception, I can think of almost none, but William Morris, his wonderful book News from Nowhere, is a wonderful anti-industrial novel. But the rest of them seem to be just fine with it. No different from the Marxists in terms of productionism, terms of that whole gigantic shift. If you want to preserve civilization and defend it as it's failing everywhere on every level, you're free to do that. But how much sense does that make? How liberatory is that? You know, now we're coming down to the crunch time. It's not failing as much everywhere at this moment, but it's try to find an area where it's shows that it has a healthy future. I don't think you could find one. And the other part of it is the technology part of it. We live in a technosphere. It gets more technological every day or every hour, really. Now we have chatbots, and that's a whole thing in itself. By the way, I mean, if you have machines that can produce the culture, think about that. It can write the plays, it can compose the music. It's perfecting itself on that level. Then you have to ask, gee, maybe symbolic culture isn't such a wonderful deal after all. I mean, you get to some pretty profound questions, but that's just people like Bookchin or Chomsky. That's the farthest thing from their mind. Well, of course, Bookchin's no longer with us, but they're just really out to lunch. They're not seeing the reality on this planet that we are. And you can hardly ever find somebody who is willing to defend this whole project, which I think again is failing so grandly. It's like the elephant in the room. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows what's going on. And you can point out all the different aspects, different details. Now, even though the most prosaic stuff, like let's take air travel. One more giant crash today in India. I mean, now even air traffic is no longer safe. I mean, is that where we're getting to? It looks that way. We're not making it up. The levels of pollution that, we're awash in microplastic. I mean, we could go on for hours at the ecological failure, which is spectacular and it's so scary. The soil, the air, the water, it's all turning poisonous now. Who doesn't know that? And all the pathetic little gestures, all these summit conferences, it's just a joke. It's a bitter joke. I mean, let's face it, the gatekeepers are many. It's not, they don't get to be on TV every day bringing up these questions or having this type of discussion. Yeah, it's not really permitted, is it? And my books don't have a gigantic readership, but you got to keep up the effort to have a conversation in society on this level. And we've got some good media projects. Oak Journal is a standout one. They're working on number 7 now. Backwoods, some podcasts like the Uncivilized podcast is one that stands out on this level. I think, so let's face it, the whole zeitgeist is one of repression. Although certainly people are fighting back about the racist ICE raids all over the country. So that's a good sign of radical energy, I think. But as far as the specifically green anarchy part of it, well, we're just doing what we can. And, there are signs of resistance in various ways. Like there was a piece in the New York Times yesterday about, no. It was a USA Today story about they called it a movement away from smartphones toward just basic flip phones, and how much healthier and how much happier people are when they move away from their addiction to be staring at the screen all their lives. That's just really a dreadful picture. And But I say, some people are turning against it, and USA Today, not a radical point of view, calls it a movement. So there's Luddite prospects, and the Luddite point of view is part of the green anarchy perspective, I would say. I think there's a certain amount of revulsion against the high-tech nature of society. For example, not just referring to the young folks, but uh, it's well known that the emotional health of the younger generations is a train wreck. It's just appalling. Every day, you read about the epidemic of loneliness, you read about suicide rates. It's just disastrous. I mean, there's nobody that can try to say, oh, everybody's healthy on their smartphone. They're all connected. That's what all the ads tell us anyway. We're just all connected. We're just, it's just so wonderful that we can be brought together this way and globally, instantaneously. Well, that's crap. It's horrible. It's toxic. It's addictive. Everybody knows this stuff, really. There's no, what was my radio show, for example, I've tried to plumb this, tried to look at this a little bit empirically. This is a college town here in Eugene, University of Oregon. And, asking kids, are you having a good time with your phone? It's kind of crazy, man. Almost, it's kind of crazy how you get the same answer every time, virtually every time. They'll say, I know I'm addicted. I scroll all day, every day, and it's sad. It's not bringing me joy or connection or anything like that. But I'm addicted. I'm gonna keep doing it because I'm addicted. In other words, they'll cop to the ill health of it, the wretched nature of it, freely. Just as they'll freely say, "Yeah, but I'm addicted, so shoot me." I wish I wasn't addicted. I wish everybody else wasn't addicted. I wish social media didn't exist. You hear that a lot. That's not a secret. It's a horrible picture. We didn't make it up. We're appalled by it, and lots of people are. It's no secret. So the neo-Luddite, or whatever you want to call it, there's a disaffection there. There really is, and not just the one of the original stories. Well, not original, but fairly recent. The Luddite Club kids in high school in New York started the Luddite Club, and they. It's the idea, you do run across this here and there. I want to be face to face in person with my friends, not just on the screen all the time. You can't even get off your phone when you're with them physically. It's that impoverished, I would say. Well, there are people who are sick of that, always being on their phone and feeling less and less healthy. I mean, there it is. It isn't just some kind of strange crank group that neo-Luddites or something. I mean, it's just everyday life. It's the way it is, and it's bad. I think we're approaching kind of a crunch time. We can keep going this way and see more and more ruin in every sphere, in any place you look. Physical environment and spiritual environment, psychological health. Sure. Yeah, we can keep going that way and just take more drugs to get through it, get through the day. Legal drugs, illegal drugs, because it's hard to face it. It's hard to put up with it. So conceivably, who the heck knows, right? But people will possibly start making a choice away from that. And I've mentioned a few signs of turning away from it, but that's the that's the landscape of it. That's and like I say, nobody knows. That may never happen. May never happen, but it might. And I like to put it this way: if in terms of the primitivist label, anarcho-primitivism, green anarchy, what have you, if we're going to have a future, it's going to have to be somehow primitive. Period. Or else we just keep going on a extremely unhealthy, even suicidal path. That's the choice.